Medieval speedrunning is known for its difficulty. You can barely go a level without the pressure of having to perform some game-breaking magic trick first try, or else the run dies. You have to be lucky to make it to the end of the game, never mind doing it in world record time. As we clip through gates of fire and embark on voyages into places we were never meant to go, we often wonder, how could we do it faster? What could we do to complete the game that little bit quicker? To answer this, we have to look into the depths of the void, to remember forgotten discoveries. There are skips that we have purposely omitted from the run because of their difficulty. With enough effort and understanding, some of these tricks can be added into the run. Other skips may be so ridiculously precise that there's surely no way they would ever become feasible for us to perform. And sometimes the reward for successfully pulling them off may not even be worth the risk. Some skips are destined to stay unused forever. They are on another level of difficulty, and not even the most experienced speedrunner will dare to attempt them. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the top 5 medieval skips that are too hard for speedrunners. Starting with number 5, the Return to the Graveyard key skip. If you've ever seen a medieval speedrun perform live, you might have heard the runner talk about a key skip. This key skip is a small skip performed during the game's first boss fight against the stained glass demon. After dealing the final hit to the stained glass demon, a cutscene will begin and you will lose control of Dan. The demon will shatter and he will leave behind a skull key, which appears in the center of the arena. Picking up the key is the trigger for the end of the level, and once the cutscene is ended, we are free to take the key. Since we don't regain control until after this cutscene, it is faster to perform the key skip. It involves tactically moving to position yourself underneath the boss, right as you deal the last hit to it. This is where the key will appear, so this means you'll instantly pick up the skull key when it is first available, causing the level to end. Doing this allows you to finish the level 3 seconds faster than otherwise possible. However, this isn't quite the key skip that we're talking about here. In the second level of the game, the Graveyard, around halfway through the level, you'll encounter the Skull Door. This door can only be opened with the Skull Key, which can only be obtained by defeating the previously mentioned boss in the Hilltop Mausoleum level. This particular door in the Graveyard is actually fake though. It cannot be opened. This is all that's behind it, and it doesn't lead anywhere. After we defeat the stained glass demon and obtain the skull key, the next level that unlocks is the aptly named Return to the Graveyard. In this level, we're going through the graveyard, but backwards, and with new enemies. It's this version of the level that contains the functional skull door, the barrier separating the necropolis and the wider world of Gallowmere. In an area beyond this door, we encounter the second boss of the game, the Guardians of the Graveyard. But did you know we don't actually require the skull key to reach them? Return to the Graveyard as a level doesn't unlock until we already have the skull key, so we can't technically skip obtaining the key, but we can skip using it. This is the pathway that leads to the skull door. The player is intended to use the key to open the door to continue on in the level. And there is no other way to progress. However, do you see this higher ground up here? We aren't meant to be able to go up there. It's out of bounds. If we come up here onto this raised ground above the steps, we can perform a dash jump onto a very precise spot and actually make it up there. As long as we react quickly and jump again before slipping off, we're up. We can then walk along this cliff, bypassing the door and dropping down into the next area. No key required. If only it were that simple. We don't actually unlock the dash until we've already beaten the boss of this level. This means that we have to use the next best option. We must perform a difficult technique known as the knockback. By holding out the club with the square button, we can poke this fence and the impact will knock us backwards slightly. With frame perfect timing, we can get a large speed boost from this knockback, and then jump and move towards the ledge. It's barely enough to cover the distance. A knockback jump will allow us to get up onto the cliff and perform this skip, allowing us to go around the door and complete return to the graveyard without ever having to use the skull key. So say we were able to do this incredibly difficult trick and go run along the cliff to drop down past the door. How much time do you think this would save in the speedrun? If you guessed 1 second, you're right. This skip, even if executed perfectly, can only save 1 second over simply using the key and continuing normally. Given the precision required for the knockback technique, the lack of cooperation of the camera, and the very small spot that we have to land on, this skip is totally impractical to perform in a run. We'll stick to doing that other key skip. Number 4. The ultimate Pulse of the Ancient Dead skip. It wouldn't be a Hardest Glitches video without Pulse of the Ancient Dead being featured, but this time we're not talking about the notoriously difficult and extremely precise level loop trick. The one that allows us to jump off the cliff and somehow skip the level. We're not talking about that one. There is a method of completing the level that's even harder than that. Near the start of the level, you can find the boatman. He tells us that we have to collect 8 soul helmets and bring them back to him. In a normal playthrough, you'd have to travel through and explore the level to find the 8 helmets, and then return to the boatman. Giving the boatman the helmets activates a cutscene, which ends with Dan jumping onto the boat and being sailed away, and then the level ends. If we take a look at this cutscene from an outside perspective, this is what it looks like. The boat was actually programmed to move down here, because this is where the exit trigger is placed. It's floating above the water. Naturally, the developers placed the exit trigger out of reach, so the player cannot simply jump to it and instantly skip the level. However, there is something in this level that can give us a boost to cover that missing distance and allow us to reach the exit trigger. Within the level, there are several enemy types: the axe-throwing skeletons, the flying ghouls, and the armored knights. The armored knights can't damage you directly. Their method of attack is to push you and attempt to knock you into the water. Their push doesn't send you very far normally, But with perfect timing, we can purposely allow one to push us, and then dash jump. The speed of the push and the dash will be combined, allowing us to travel a very large distance. This is much like how the knockback from number 5 works, and the timing is similarly precise. There is a problem with this idea. There are no armored knights on the boatman's platform. The closest one we can find is back here, on the path heading towards the boatman's platform. So now we can introduce Hurdle. Hurdle got his name from always getting in our way in the speedrun. When we head into this level in a speedrun, we first follow the path to the right. We go past Hurdle and jump over to the island to take a soul helmet, and then immediately turn back and jump to where we came from. Because of the height difference, this jump back is incredibly precise and difficult to make. After barely making it back across this gap, our movements are often very slippery, as we attempt to adjust and recalibrate after the jump. Hurdle has watched this whole ordeal, and is waiting for his moment. He'll place himself in an inconvenient spot, making sure we can't easily pass. Trying to go around him in a fast fashion means navigating a very small space that's dangerously close to the edge. Many runs have died while trying to speed through this path. Today, however, Hurdle will be helping us. Our goal here is to bring him with us to the boatman's platform. We're planning to use him to push us, giving us the boost that we need to reach the exit. We can stand next to him and bait him along, and he will follow, up until this point. When he gets this far, he refuses to come out of his wander range, and he will no longer follow us. But if we attack or dash into the knight, we can help push him further up along the path, taking him outside of his normal wander range. Dashing is the best option here, as it allows us to push him a good distance and in straight lines. It's important to understand that Hurdle is programmed to walk back to his usual spot. He's got to be ready to block the next speedrunner after all. This means that he is constantly walking downwards to try to escape. We can stall him briefly and stop him from walking by standing next to him and baiting him to attempt to push us. Eventually, with precision, we can take him all the way up the path. And then we find an obstacle. There is a gap to cross between the two platforms, with water in between. We can jump over this, but Hurdle cannot. However, with extreme precision, we can dash into him and knock him over the gap. First, we have to position him right at the edge of the platform, which is very difficult. We can't control how far each dash will push him, so it's quite likely a dash will knock him slightly too far and into the water. If Hurdle dies, the game is over. This whole skip is now impossible. And in true challenging medieval speedrunning fashion, there is no way to try again. We can't restart the level, the only way out of the level is death. This means that we only get one chance to do this skip. Once he's at the very edge, we have to quickly get lucky with a large dash. This will allow him to barely cross the gap and make it to the other platform. If you are able to do this without either you or Hurdle falling in, you enter into the next stage of this absurd skip. Now that he's over the gap, you can jump across yourself. The trouble here, there's a cutscene trigger on this platform. This is the cutscene where we were introduced to the boatman, and is promised to help us escape the level. Viewing this cutscene takes around 6 seconds. However, we are lucky that the trigger only extends across the middle area of the platform. This does mean that we can go to the side of the platform and perform a tricky curved jump around the cutscene trigger, avoiding the cutscene and saving the 6 seconds. That's all well and good, but what about Hurl? He's still on a mission to get back home, and he'll keep walking downwards until he gets there, even if there's lethal water in the way. We aren't playing Lemmings here, so we can't simply build him a bridge or magically teach him how to swim. He's destined to go drown in the water, and all we can do is endlessly push him away to delay his death. The problem is, once we're around the cutscene trigger, we can no longer go back for him. In order to solve this, we're going to have to push him and get a very lucky large dash, somehow avoiding going too far and hitting the trigger ourselves in the process. Quickly perform the tricky jump around the cutscene trigger, and then rush back to push him again before he moves too far down that he's now in the trigger and off limits. It's crazily difficult. You might be thinking, this skip is ridiculous enough. How about we forfeit those 6 seconds and view that cutscene? Well, if we do that, we'll find that Hurdle is still on the move during the cutscene, meaning that he will make it into the water before we can stop him. He is very determined to go back to his usual spot. I did have a genius idea. A trick with several uses in MediEvil's speedrun is the inventory glitch. We can use the inventory glitch here as we enter the cutscene to freeze time. The cutscene will play as normal, but Hurdle will be stuck in place and can no longer move during the cutscene. This completely avoids this dilemma at the expense of 6 seconds. We can now push him to the corner, being very careful to hope that he does not go too far and into the water. Once he's there, jump to the other side of him and use your one chance for him to push you to get the perfect timing for a perfect jump to hit the exit trigger. Easy. The tool assisted speedrun will show us how it's done. The task manages to beat the level in only 14 seconds. With the second fastest, far more feasible method of skipping this level, it takes around 23 seconds from start to finish. This means this ultimate pole skip saves 9 seconds, if performed absolutely optimally. Good luck doing that. Number 3. The Stained Glass Demon 1 cycle. For number 3, we head back to the Hilltop Mausoleum. The Stained Glass Demon is an iconic boss. Everyone who has played MediEvil will remember the moments where it breaks free and makes its entrance. When the boss fight starts, we're given the throwing daggers. This is the weapon we're going to use to take it on. The Stained Glass Demon floats in the air when he becomes vulnerable. This means he's too high up to be reached by melee attacks. so we're going to have to use ranged. Using the throwing daggers is our best option. Because we don't take any chalices in the speedrun, we can only get the few weapons that the game gives us for free. The daggers are adequate for beating this boss, however they're a bit slow. This boss operates in the standard way a boss tends to. The demon will use a few different attacks and then it will go vulnerable, and then you're able to attack back, repeating this pattern until it is defeated. The boss has 500 health and each dagger hit will only do 6 damage. You can hold X for rapid attacks, however it's still going to take you a while. You can also use a charged attack by holding the square button. This deals 45 damage at a time, and it is the better option. It takes 3 full cycles to beat this boss with charged dagger hits, meaning that it attacks and then goes vulnerable for us to hit it 3 times before we can finally defeat it. For a long time, charged dagger hits were the best way we knew to defeat the demon. However, in recent years, a glitch technique we call super daggers was discovered. If you press X and then square soon afterwards, with fairly precise timing, you will perform an attack that does 15 damage, while matching the speed of an attack that would normally do 6. If you keep pressing X and square in this particular rhythm, you can continue to do 15 damage per hit. It is a little tricky to perform super daggers, but with practice you can get a hang of the timing. This technique allows us to deal enough damage that we can kill the boss in only 2 cycles. It takes 1 minute and 5 seconds to beat the demon in 3 cycles, and 2 cycles only 40 seconds. 25 seconds of time saved is pretty significant. However, it turns out that the stained glass demon can actually be defeated in only 1 cycle. In 2024, I found a technique that allows you to attack much faster than intended. We call these ultra attacks. To perform one of these, you must press X to attack and then quickly open the inventory. After the inventory is open, press X again to select and re-equip your weapon. Re-equipping the weapon will reset the animation of our attack, meaning we can immediately press X to attack again. By rapidly pressing X select X, done correctly with precise timing, we can attack extremely fast. I passed this technique discovery over to Crash41596, the man behind the Tall Sisters speedrun. With some kind of insane magic, he was able to do this. Look at the inputs he's got it doing in order to make this happen. I don't think you can press buttons faster than that. The stained glass demon beaten in 1 cycle, taking only 27 seconds. That's 13 more seconds saved, making our total time save over the normal old method 38 seconds. This ultra attack technique is certainly on another level. Could it be used elsewhere in the run? In the Taller Sisters speedrun, probably. But for us regular speedrunners, a little less likely. I put this one at number 3 because, hey, maybe we'll find a way to do it someday.
Ever wondered how I got these hands?
Number 2. The impossible jump of Crystal Caves. After completing the lake, perhaps by not so intended means, we'll find ourselves in Crystal Caves. This level starts off with narrow pathways that guide us over a long drop into lethal water. The flying shadow demons that are lurking in this area will shoot at us, and getting hit can knock us off of the path and into the water below. Hard enough for a casual player, but something else lurking within this level is infinitely more difficult. To complete this level normally, you'd cross over these narrow pathways, heading into the main area of the level. From here there are two options, go left or go right. If we naturally go left first, we'll find that there is a large, impassable pit. There is a spot to put a star rune here, and logically you can deduce that if we want to go this way and cross the pit, we'll have to find a star rune first. If we take the right path, we can find a spinning laser crystal that guards an earth rune. The lasers of this spinning crystal do some of the highest damage in the game. Once we've dodged this and collected the earth rune, we can continue through the level and use the rune to open this gate to get access to the cavern underneath the waterfall. It's in this room that we can find the star rune that we were looking for. This cavern is also the location of the dragon boss fights. We have to use the dragon gems to summon him. Funnily enough, the dragon boss battle here is technically optional. We can simply take the star rune and leave, following through the remainder of the level, ending with us being dropped down a slope that leaves us back near the start of the level, Ratchet and Clank style. We can then go and use the star rune. This causes a magic platform to rise up from the pits, allowing us to finally cross the gap, and this is where we find the exit of the level. Now if we could simply cross this gap at the beginning of the level without going out of our way to get the star rune, we'd save a lot of time in the speedrun. The ledge on the other side of this pit is the exact right distance away to be barely out of reach. No matter how you might try, you can't jump across this gap. And you can't do anything crazy like stand on the walls either. The developers must have tested this jump very thoroughly to make sure that it wasn't possible, and that no player could get across early. But what if they didn't account for someone playing the game frame by frame in an emulator and inputting perfect button presses? It turns out that it actually is possible to make it across this gap using these slowdown tools. In the tool-assisted speedrun of the game, Crash makes crossing this gap look like it's nothing at all. A mere dash jump is all it takes to get him across. This jump is deceivingly difficult. No player has ever successfully performed this jump in real time. How he does it isn't fully known to me. It's partly about jumping on the last possible frame, and partly related to traveling in a perfectly straight line, which isn't made easy due to the way the game's camera works. There are other ways to beat this level quickly. If you've seen my previous videos, you might be aware of the level loop glitch. There is a spot where we can perform this right at the start of the level. Level looping allows us to fall off an edge and deep into the void, and then eventually we fall so far that the game decides to have us reappear at the top of the level. We can then carefully guide our fall to land directly at the level exit, skipping collecting the star rune altogether. This is good, and certainly faster than traveling across the level to get the star rune. However, there is something better. You may be aware of the slightly rare occurrence of a half loop, where we somehow complete this level loop trick in only half the time that a normal loop would take. We don't fully understand half loops yet, and it's not possible to get them to work every time. But even if we do get this elusive half loop trick, the impossible jump wins in speed. This impossible jump would allow us to complete Crystal Caves 5 seconds faster than the half loop. I reckon I'll stick to going for the half loop. And finally we have number 1. The Return to the Graveyard shortcuts. For this final skip, we head back to Return to the Graveyard. After getting past the skull door, by a method of your choosing, you can venture beyond it and into the last part of the level. This is the area that houses the currently hardest known skip in the game. And we're not talking about that gravestone jump and the coffin clip. The intended way to make it through this area is to explore. We find that there is a broken bridge with grey cliffs above on the left and right side. We eventually find the star rune on top of the hill, and we can use that to open the golden gates and head into the underground area. From here, the player is supposed to pick left or right and follow the tunnel along, jumping into the whirlwind at the end. This brings the player to the raised up grey cliffs that overlook where we were before. We're supposed to push this large block along until it falls off the edge and into the water, creating a stepping stone across. We then have to return back the way we came, down the whirlwind, back through the tunnel, and head down the other path that we didn't choose to get to the other side of the cliff to repeat the process with 2 more pushable blocks. I didn't even know there were 3 blocks altogether until I recorded this. And this is because I've never done it this way. You don't have to. The intended way to do this would be to presumably go back the way we came, through the tunnel, up the entrance and out of the gold gates, and then we'd be free to jump across all the stones and use them as our bridge to the boss area. However, if you go to the right cliff, you can simply fall down onto the other side of the bridge. You do not even have to jump to do this. It is an oversight. Even if you had pushed all the blocks down, you wouldn't have to go back through the tunnel to approach the stone bridge from this area. You could jump down onto the stones from the grey cliff, and then you'd likely find that you could have jumped over to the bridge anyway, not needing the other stones. It was a cool idea though. So we can skip pushing the blocks to make the stone bridge pretty easily. But what about skipping everything? In the speedrun, we would normally jump on this gravestone and perform the coffin clip to get through the gold gates early, avoiding having to use the star rune. If we instead head over to the broken bridge, we'll find that there's nowhere to go. It's too far to cross the water where the bridge would be, and there's no wall to use the knockback technique on. If we take a look at the cliffs, we will notice that the right side cliff is higher up than the left side, so we'll focus on the left side. There are conveniently several gravestones near the edge by the water that we can stand on. Gravestones in this game are notorious for being difficult to stand on. They are very small, and it takes some precision to jump on one. Now that we have some more height, it is possible to dash jump onto the cliff. Again, since we don't get the dash until we've beaten this level already, this method won't be an option. But there is a technique found in recent years that can help us. It's called the speed glitch. The speed glitch allows us to run faster than normal. By flicking the analog stick in a particular rhythm, we can somehow add Dan's walking speed to his running speed, resulting in a 55% speed increase. In the speedrun, we use this in the early levels. It saves around 30 seconds overall. Once we've obtained the dash from this level, the speed glitch becomes obsolete, as the dash is now the new fastest way to move. But the speed glitch can get its final use right here. If you jump on this particular gravestone and attempt to jump up to the cliff, you'll of course find that you cannot make it. But if you combine the speed glitch and a jump, it's barely possible. You might be thinking, that's easy enough. Stand on the gravestone, mash the analog stick, and then jump, and you're up. It's unfortunately not that simple. You cannot speed glitch while jumping. Attempting to speed glitch during a jump will actually lose all of your speed. The only times you can speed glitch are when you're on the ground or while you're falling. The basic premise of this skip is that you run, jump, speed glitch while falling, land exactly on the very small gravestone, travel along the surface of the gravestone briefly to build more speed on the ground, and then jump to finally make it up to the cliff. What actually ends up happening is you run, get messed with by the camera, jump, attempt to speed glitch while falling, miss the gravestone altogether, and then die. The precision required to perform this skip is unreal. The camera angle in this specific spot also makes it very tough. The speed glitch has to be perfect, and that is a challenge to achieve. Every angle has to be perfect too. In this way, it's much like Crystal Caves' impossible jump. This shortcut is so absurdly difficult that you cannot classify this one as an oversight by the developers. You may be wondering, how much time does this one save then? The answer? Only 3 seconds. That's 3 seconds saved over doing it the standard way. Going for this skip will quite literally make you return to the graveyard. And that was the top 5 MediEvil skips that are too hard for speedrunners. There's so many challenging skips in this game, so it can be tough to put them in difficulty order. There are new skips being found all the time. Imagine what kind of crazy skips we might see in the future. If you like this video, you'll certainly like my video showcasing the top 10 MediEvil glitches that you've never seen. See you next video.